Yes.
I do know
How
you.
was your knee?
Oh, much
There you
better.
are.
Much better.
He does know you.
Forgive me, I'm so sorry. You know, I swear sometimes my mom could pass in front of me,
Yeah.
and when it's a different scenario, you don't always make the connection.
No.
So,
I
but yes, the
understand.
city advertised itself as the corporation of the city.
Who
of
are the
Penticton.
owners of it?
You are.
I would expect.
As in all
John's-
residents?
Yes.
Well,
are?
the
Okay.
They're the
municipality,
shareholders.
the residents of the municipality.
And is that information available on the City of Penticton website in some little blurb?
You know what,
What
I'm
information
not
is
familiar
that?
with that. I would
Just
have
what
to-
you said there, that each person is an owner of the corporation of the City of Penticton.
I don't think it specifies it as such, but we always mention it here.
Well, we're certainly responsible
all the
too,
time,
because
yeah.
of the election
Yeah.
process.
We're accountable to the citizens.
Accountable, I think
Yeah.
that's a better word, John.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess what I'm getting at here is I would like it to be much more apparent of what it is and who we are and what our relationship is, so it's not just walking around in the heads of people, but it's easy to find. Because a lot of people, they go through life, they don't know what a corporation is or what's public and what's private,
Right,
and how they can interact it as a
With it.
voter,
Yes.
or, you know, do I have the ability to make you accountable or not? These sorts of things they're just not talked about, to be quite honest, enough. So if it is a corporation, it's
Yes.
a public corporation with
Mhm.
the townsfolk are equal
Yes.
shareholders, okay?
by virtue of their vote, absolutely.
Okay, and the reason I wanted to know that,
Yes.
it had to do with, I came last year to like a smart meter event, and it
Yes.
was in here, and it had something to do, they were talking about a closed door session. And I wanted to know, when was the first closed door session? Where did the idea of,
In camera, are you referring to? In camera?
yeah, I didn't go to enough of them to be able to see how often this has been happening or
Yes.
how long it has been happening,
Yes.
but I wanted to know when was the first time that council was able to not be public to
Okay.
its,
And there is a process, absolutely, Al.
Mhm.
And the governance over municipalities, there are provincial statutes, there is a charter
Yeah.
that declares all of these things.
Mhm.
So
and
within.
that is over and above
Oh,
the
yes,
interest
we-
of the
Yes,
citizen?
we
Yes.
have
It
to,
is.
we have to adhere to that. And we're held accountable to that, and
Right.
we're responsible. So when you talk about issues that are legal, issues that are land
Land,
disbursement,
legal,
land,
and staff.
uh,
Labor.
labor, that's the other
Yeah.
one, legal, land, and labor. Those three entities are clearly defined in the charter,
Mhm.
that they are not for public discussion at a municipal table.
Land,
Legal,
legal,
and
and charter,
labor.
and labor.
And labor,
And is that to do with the labor
Staff.
of staff?
yes.
Penticton staff.
Yes.
So, as a citizen, I have to put our rights behind what the province, like, I'm just trying to understand, we are not allowed to know about labor
Like
that we're
negoti-
paying for because the province says that's
correct.
okay?
Let's put it into more specifics. Right now, there are labor negotiations going on between QP
Mhm.
and IBW.
Which
the-
are unions.
Those are unions, and so that is an in-camera session,
Mhm.
because that discussion is not, it's deemed to be proprietary, it's deemed to be in confidence. So there is to be no discussion. So the in-camera is established, and you will hear the corporate officer read out those stipulations. So you might be better to ask Dana Schmidt. She's our
Mhm.
corporate officer. The specifics of that, I know as a councillor, and John as well, that we have to be very careful. We can't discuss anything but labor, legal, and, gosh, now I've forgotten the other one, land. That's the environment to protect that.
In the public.
No,
No,
that's in
that's
camera.
in camera.
That's in camera. So you can appreciate
So
if the
can you
city's
define-
looking
Just
to.
define in camera, is that in a private room without the public
That's
present
correct.
is in
That's correct.
camera?
Yeah.
That's correct.
So it's either in the public or it's in camera,
Camera, that's
and there's
correct.
no not
In
in camera,
between.
not in there. Okay,
Yeah.
and
And this- and this-
no one is allowed to see the in camera, but
The council and senior staff that are applicably involved.
right.
What
So-
about freedom of
And
information?
that's a provincial.
Well, freedom of information also has protocols. There are certain things, like, I mean, you can ask any question you like to ask, but there's governance over what can
What
be
answer
answered.
you get.
And so the protocol of a council meeting is typically dictated in that there will be a call by the mayor to put it in camera for reasons of legal, land, or labor. An agenda will be struck for those topics. Council meets usually before a council meeting, a council day. That discussion will ensue. What is appropriate to come out of that comes forward at the public council meeting. We will give a definition to, for example, we can say that the QP contract has been settled. We can say that we have purchased a piece of property. But you can imagine if the city said, I'm going to try to purchase a piece of property out there, how that would
Cost will escalate.
that's right, the cost would probably escalate. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons that Dana Schmidt would be more articulate than me, that I can tell you, that's how we structure our meetings. The first session is in camera. Then we will come into the opportunity of public hearing. That's where we've provided notice of something that's going to happen regarding someone's property. It could be a developer coming in wanting to do something, whatever, and that's the public's opportunity, because it will have been well advertised, to come forward and speak.
Okay.
At the conclusion of that, we then go into the public meeting, and that agenda is always set the Thursday or Friday before the Monday. It is available, people can come and get that agenda, and it is very public. That meeting, now last night's meeting didn't happen to be a long meeting. We've been here sometimes till
Yeah,
11, it just
11
depends
o'clock.
on the agenda and the interest of the public to speak. Because even within the public agenda, like last night, there is opportunity for people to come forward and speak, even though it's not a public hearing.
Right.
The mayor will call for, does anyone wish to speak? He'll call 3 times for that. So that's how it's set up. Now, different municipalities might undertake to do
They
it
vary
differently.
it a little bit.
We understood that in the past, the city would often do the in-camera in the morning, and then they would break and then come back for the public session.
And as far as you know, that in-camera session is not ever available, and you can make a request, but it would automatically be denied, or let's say,
Well, it would depend on the request.
all
Yeah.
of the people wanted to know.
It would depend on the request. For example, sometimes we will ask, as we look for more information regarding a sensitive decision being made about land, labor, or the like, we may ask for someone to come and make a presentation.
Right.
We have on occasion, and I'll use as an example the V's, when we were negotiating that contract for their usage of the SOEC. They came and made a presentation to us. Because that was financial, that was a contract, therefore it was legal, that was not a public conversation. They came into the in-camera and they made their presentation. Then they left. Council may have chosen to ask questions, but no decision was made with them in there. So that's how the in-camera works, and I believe that's legislated
Yeah.
by the charter, the provincial
I
charter.
think the question that he had though on salaries, he wants
yes.
to know, can he find out what everybody gets paid? And we
No, I
publicize it.
didn't have that question.
Okay, we
No.
publicize that once a year. I thought that's what your first question was,
No,
okay.
he's-
But we
trying to
publicize it once a
understand.
year, so yeah.
So and I appreciate you trying to understand, because believe me, as a councillor, elected to the position, your first year is a lot of
Yeah,
learning.
learning, yeah.
Because the things that you assume from being a person on the street,
Yeah.
either because you just don't know or you don't live it, if it doesn't come into your life, you don't know. So
Absolutely.
the first year of a councillor truly is a lot of learning, and in fact, that's one of the main reasons we go to things like UBCM, the
United British Columbia
UBCM,
Municipalities.
the Union of British Columbia. I always have to stop and think,
City.
because you say these in acronyms so quickly. But a reason that we attend the UBCM, which is a provincial convention, is so that I can talk to my colleagues. You are a member of a municipality, say in Prince George or in Victoria, and we can share experiences, we can share information. Sometimes the problem can be similar, but the resolution in Victoria could be different from
Very
Penticton.
different.
So, but it's a learning, is what I'm trying to say to you.
I
So-
totally agree, and I
Yeah.
just think that there needs to be a little bit of scholastic effort somehow. Either that's written on a website that says, yes, we do, when it involves land legal
More
or,
explanation.
yeah, just because
Okay.
no one really knows.
Okay.
And if you and I are partners in this business, and then all of a sudden you go in a room and I'm not allowed in there,
Yeah.
and then you come out and give me your opinion or something, well,
Yeah.
that's not a partnership that I
Well,
want to be a part of personally.
And I respect
don't-
what you're saying. However, there are issues that are greater than you and I.
Of course there is.
So,
Of course there is. But I think we all need to at least hear what the issue is. And
Yes.
you're telling me I don't have the right to go in
For
there.
in camera, I'm afraid, I'm not telling you that because I made the rule.
No, I know that.
So as long as you
I know
understand that,
that.
I'm charged to uphold
Absolutely.
and live with it
And
too.
quite
Sometimes I don't like it
possibly,
either.
quite possibly, you even entered into an election without even knowing those facts yourself. And this is a thing.
I can say to you that I have learned a lot since I've been a councillor. I have learned a lot.
So,
'Cause you
I
just-
guess what I'm saying is I want you guys to be representatives of a whole bunch of little guys like me,
Yes,
and to do less of this kind of like, oh, well, we'll just put the province in there and now you don't have. I mean, I'm not saying that you're doing that, but it is a system,
it is a system.
and it's, if John and I were to go into business tomorrow and then the next day he's gonna be like, the province says I don't have to tell you about what we're talking about, and now this, we're gonna do this contract. Well, I think that I wouldn't wanna be in business with
No.
him anymore.
Well, and I'm very respectful of what
Yeah.
you're saying. I
And
do. I mean,
number
both
one,
John and I
if
have been in
if
business.
John and I are 40 years apart in age, and
We
all I've
probably are.
done is sell a piece of Lego, I don't know anything, and
Yeah.
he's been in business for a lot of years. Well, where is my education coming from?
Fair enough.
It's not coming from anywhere.
But your conversation needs to go beyond me, because I'm a little person down here,
Mhm.
and the hierarchy up here has made that governance.
It
So
has,
that, and
yeah.
that's not just in Penticton
I realize
or
that
in
now,
BC,
yes.
it's across the
And
world,
thank you for
really.
clarifying that.
Well, it doesn't make it any less comfortable for you. Like, I appreciate what you're saying. It's difficult for us too, truly, sometimes making some of these decisions, because we take it right in the face.
Yeah.
But we can't
But you don't
comment.
have to.
Yes, I do, because by the charter, if I leak or share information that is deemed to be, I can lose my position.
And I guess what I mean is exactly that. You don't have to hold positions if you're not willing to be a part of a system you don't agree with. But
Well,
for
you-
me, I just want to make sure that
People understand.
people understand what that
Yeah.
system is, and a lot of it is just not easy to find. It is known by people who deal with it all the time, like
Yeah.
you were talking about, but
Yeah.
to the common person, they have no idea about any of those.
You know, we can carry this
systems.
forward. I would really like for you to speak with Dana, because the corporate officer deals with all of those legalities. But as I'm thinking, you know, we've endeavored to open lines of communication by putting on staff a communications officer, rather than stuff happening sort of off the cuff and off the side of someone's table. And one of the things that then Mayor Dan Ashton was really encouraging of was in the utility bill, to get a newsletter. And maybe we can use that as a tool to do some of the education you're talking about. I know, I will just say this, we had a group of young people who attended here
Mhm.
a couple of sessions ago,
Yeah.
too, I guess. And their slogan was "Time for Change," and I mean, you know, they have every right to do and to say that. I was just interested that they didn't all stay for the duration of the council meeting.
It was
And no one
over
came
3
last
hours.
night.
Might have been
No
true.
one
I had to
came-
leave.
No one came last night. So I believe what you're saying is true. A lot of people don't truly understand the mechanism that is in place by charter.
Mhm.
And so some things we've been able to change.
Yeah, we have.
We have, and UBCM is a platform where you can bring forward those kinds of ideas that say, you know, are we doing this the best way? Could we possibly do it this way? I will say to you, that's an uphill battle to put land, legal, and labor in a public forum. I think there would
No,
be
it'll never
huge-
happen,
It would
because
be
it involves
huge-
third parties,
Yes.
and you can't you can't put those third parties on the spot.
Mhm.
That's why they're in camera, so that they don't get, I don't know what's the word you can use for that.
Well, it gives unfair advantage.
Yeah,
in-
exactly.
In things like when
That's
cities
it.
wanting to purchase
Yeah, yeah.
a piece of property.
Not only to purchase, but legal too. You
Illegal
don't
as
want to
well,
put
yes.
information out there that might represent this person in the wrong
Right.
wrong
Or
manner.
taken in the wrong
Yeah,
way.
that,
You know,
exactly.
the intent.
That's why.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
intent, and I will just reference the intent of the letter that Alvina Slump got, and I'm understanding others that were using the same strategy. The letter was to advise that if you continue, then, you know, this is what's gonna happen. So I think we do,
Yeah.
we do try to be sensitive to everybody, but we also have to be sensitive to our staff. So, good question, Al, really truly a good question.
Thank you. Thank you for answering them. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're coming here to answer these questions, and I
Well-
appreciate that John was outside during this meeting today, because I think at the end of the day, we just want a better Penticton. We're
We all do.
you can call it a corporation or whatever it is, but it's just a bunch of people living in a
Together.
spot in the land. Okay,
Yeah,
that's all it is.
exactly.
Oh,
And
no question.
we
No
want it to
question.
be the best we can, and the cheaper that we can have that great place, the better. The
Make it
safer,
affordable for young
Affordable is the
families.
word.
the safer
For
it
young
is, the more
families.
honest it
Safer.
is. All these things
Yeah.
are just things
Well-
everyone wants, and the
Well, they're
fastest
they're
directed way.
entitlements.
They are entitled to
They
it.
are,
yeah.
they are entitlements, and when the mayor indicated that he was gonna be away, and that this is a function that Gary put forward, this was his idea to make a more comfortable forum for some people who can be intimidated by
Yeah,
coming
they
to a
are.
council
They get
meeting.
intimidated. Exactly.
So he wanted to make a less formal environment, and so when he asked, I'm typically the deputy for April and October, but because of Wes Hopkins' retirement,
Mhm.
or resignation.
What's a retirement?
Strike that word, resignation, it left, that September was his month.
Right.
So the mayor asked if I would step in and do both for him, and then he would be away today. And then he said, and I guess we'll have to cancel the following. And I said to him, if you like, I'm happy to keep that going, because people now have an expectation that it's gonna happen. And it's been good, it's been good
Mhm.
conversation.
Now, I
Good,
got
that's great.
just another one that you may not know about it, because it might have been before you were on council, but maybe John can speak to this. It has to do with the steps towards other corporations doing business with the city. And this might go right back to what we were just discussing, but for example, the company that owns the smart meters, what steps did they go through to be doing business with me?
Okay.
Was there numerous companies putting a tender forward?
I believe so.
Typically,
Yes.
There
typically that
was, and
happens.
was there a public notice in the paper that we, the utility of Penticton, are,
We even we had many public meetings concerning that. Actually, we had
Yeah.
2 or 3. I don't recall, but we had them in the convention center.
and before that step,
Yeah,
who decided that we want
The
in the
ele-
city,
the electrical department,
the electrical
We'll
department?
Bring it to us.
council.
and then we decide
Someone in the electrical department
the head.
said, I want smart meters.
No, it's not an I.
No, no.
It would be
Okay.
upon investigation
Yeah.
of operations.
Yeah,
The head of that department would come forward to say, we think that there is an opportunity to do something differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so that comes,
And
the idea
is there
comes to
a
council.
written testimony?
Report. We get a report.
Oh, we do
There
get
is
a
a
report,
report,
yeah.
Yes.
and where could I find that report?
Well, now in that case, I think you'd have to go to Mr. Mrozek, wouldn't it be? He's in charge of
either
operations.
him or downstairs in our archives. It would
you
be
know,
in the,
I'm gonna say you start with the administrative.
Yeah, downstairs.
With Ms.
Dana.
Antoniak. Come to her,
Mhm.
ask her your questions, and she will
Sorry,
help you find,
did you say-
Annette Antoniak, she's the CAO. And in fact, again, the protocol is that if people have a question, to come to her, she will get you the answer, she'll direct you to the person,
yeah.
whatever that conversation
Right.
leads to the solution. So start with Annette.
yeah.
And whether she's been here at that time or not, she will know where that information can be garnered, to
Right.
whom you should talk, or she'll talk and get back to you, but I would encourage you to talk to her, she's very approachable.
And we don't really have smart meters, we're one step down.
We do, but
Yeah.
as with everything,
Yeah.
frogs being thrown into cold water and
Yeah.
living, eventually it gets hot, and I'm not going to debate
No,
that
neither
with
am I.
you right now.
No.
What I
Well,
am going to,
just to
for
put it
my
out there,
personal
this-
things, I just want to know,
Yeah,
How it
where
came-
did this
there was a lot
idea-
of steps before it came.
Yes, there is, and
it
I want to
came
know
out.
if that company approached the city as it probably approached every city, and
We put out an RFP.
and why the public is
But-
not involved way sooner than the thing just showing up on my building. That's
Well, the thing
and
is,
maybe it is and maybe it isn't,
Yeah.
but because I don't read the paper
Yeah.
every day.
The thing is
and
that-
Well,
so on
it
and
didn't
so
just
forth.
appear on your
Oh,
building,
no.
there was huge public
Yeah,
input,
well,
but
absolutely.
you're asking what that was, and she
Yeah.
can be the best
Yeah.
person to help you.
Right.
Okay.
So
That's a fair question. Typically, though, so that you understand, that's why we have these various departments with department heads, and they meet regularly.
Mhm.
And they all meet together with Annette on a regular basis. And so if a particular department comes forward with an innovative idea or a way to do business better, or that something has to be dropped or something continued, that comes forward in a report, which ultimately stops at council's table when they ask for something. If council agrees that we have received all the information and we feel that this is something that can be furthered, then a process of response for proposal, an RFP, goes out.
and that response is a public response.
Oh, absolutely public. Those tenders are, there's again a very carefully laid out process where the exactness of what's being asked for is clearly identified.
Mhm.
There's a time frame by which you must reply, and then those tenders are opened in a process that again is stated. And contrary to popular belief, it's not necessarily the lowest bidder.
no,
It's the best
yeah,
that is determined to
Mhm.
win. And again, as council receives this information, it's incumbent on us to make sure that we have all the information, because staff may come in one avenue of opinion. There may be others. So again, that's incumbent on a council to determine if they have enough information.
and we send it back many times.
We do
for
send it
more-
back
for
many
more
times
stuff.
for more input,
Yeah,
for more
Good.
input.
That's excellent.
oh yeah, we do that all the time.
We did that. I'll just give you an example. The Lear House
Yeah,
has a lease. It's between the Penticton District Community Arts Council and the City of Penticton. And it has, as sometimes happens, things fall through the cracks. So their lease dated back to 1982. So it's outdated, it's not appropriate anymore. And so a report came forward, and council felt the report was not complete. So we sent it back.
Yeah.
It came forward with recommendations of what the options could be for a council, and we weren't comfortable with it, so we sent it back. And as John says, we often do that,
yeah.
looking for more information, and again, a process.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
One last thing with regard to the Wi-Fi over the downtown.
Oh, yes.
How did that? Does anyone know how that came to be?
Well, actually, I believe Shaw approached
Shaw
us.
approached, it's free,
Yes, it is.
yeah, so they approached us.
In that case, they
and-
approached us.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
the city staff, senior staff, they negotiated with them, and we get the best deal possible for the city.
Right.
To,
And did that go out to the public to say, do the citizens want that, and are they aware of the risks? Anything to
I'm
this
aware of the
degree?
risk.
I mean, we just went through this with smart meters,
Yeah.
and a big problem is, are they good for us or are they not? And that seems to be up in the air for a lot of people. It's not for me. Those, I'm
Yeah.
entitled to my opinion with
Of course
everything,
you
and
are.
I believe that Wi-Fi is inherently dangerous. I don't like the fact that it's going in schools. I don't like the fact that it's all over the street in front of my business. I don't know where.
school has Wi-Fi of their own though.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's getting to be everywhere to the
Everywhere.
point, and
Well,
and
and-
most people are like, oh well, it's free or it's. That's not my point here.
That's not
your
my
point.
my
No, I
point is,
understand.
what,
How did it get to where it
how
is
did
now?
it get in the street
I think
so
we-
quick without me really even hearing about
Right.
it? All I read about was in the newsletter you spoke of that we're getting
I'm
it.
so sorry.
That's
I-
okay, yeah.
If you don't mind, it'll stop.
Okay.
I think we had a public hearing
I
on
was
that,
going to,
didn't
I
we?
was
I
just
think
going
we
to
had a
say,
public hearing on it.
typically the reports that
Right
come
here, in
forward
here.
have input.
Yeah,
And they will speak to the occasions that the input was
Yeah.
called for. And I, gosh, sometimes my memory, because we have so much stuff
yeah,
on the
so,
go.
yeah.
But I do believe, John, you're right. I think
I
there
think
was
we had a
opportunity
public
for
hearing.
public input.
Yeah.
So that's
And
good.
as you typically in the newspaper, we do give those opportunities visibility
Yeah.
by way of the newspaper. But you know, I'm guilty myself, I don't read it every day. I get it every day, but I don't always read it every day. So this is an ongoing task for any council. How do you get the information out? And hence the newsletter that Dan Ashton suggested. You're gonna get,
Yeah.
for those, the billing from the utilities, if we can get information in there. But it's a constant challenge to get input. It really is. Sometimes people will, like you, they'll come forward. That's great. Sometimes I go and ask, you know, this is
Or-
affecting you, what do you think?
Or we have a public hearing.
We have a public
tell
hearing.
people to come and give us their input or
Yep.
whatever. We get all that, and then we pass a bylaw, whatever, and then we get hundreds of calls saying, that, well, I never knew
Yeah.
this was gonna,
It's
this
a very
was gonna
difficult
happen.
job
You
you're
know,
doing, there's no doubt about
you
it,
know,
and I
said,
believe
oh,
that,
my. Yeah, it
Well,
happens all the time.
And there's no intent, it doesn't matter who
Yeah.
the councilor or mayor of the
Yeah,
day
it doesn't matter,
is.
no.
There's no intent
No.
to offend anybody,
Yeah.
but sometimes, I used to say this to my staff, you can ask me any question you want, and I say that to the constituents as well. But be prepared for the answer, because
Yeah.
sometimes I don't even like the answer, but I'm bound by the
Yeah.
answer.
Did
But
did
still-
either of you attend that smart meter forum
Yeah.
at the Cleveland Center?
Yeah.
Now, me
I-
personally, I went to it and I was,
He was there, and he made a big
Oh,
fuss.
so
believe he had
I
a
was
lot
the
to
one
do
that-
with
Yeah,
putting
he
it
was
on.
there, yeah.
For me, that raised a lot of information that I have a feeling that Shaw is not giving you, and that
Oh.
these companies that sell these devices are not giving you. So when you do deal with this sort of thing in the future, I would hope that now that this has been brought to your attention, that you're be like, oh well, perhaps Health Canada is not the best person to.
People don't trust high authority, that's what the problem is.
Quite often, especially
Yeah.
when it involves money
I see it
and
all
big
the time
business and all sorts of other things, because sometimes there's things like the city of Penticton, which sounds like a bunch of community members, but it's actually a corporation. And those corporations are doing business behind closed doors and so on and so forth.
In some instances, that's
Yeah, we
correct.
do, yeah.
That's
Uh,
correct.
And a person like myself has to stand up and be like, well, what are we, and where can I get involved with this company that wants to do this before it's way down the line?
Have you
That's all.
ever considered joining some of the city
Advisory committees.
advisory committees that we have? Because
No, but I-
everything we do here goes to those advisory committees,
Right.
and then they come back with
Recommendations.
yeah, recommendations,
Or thoughts.
or changes to what we're thinking of doing, you know,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. So, you know, if you really want to learn things, that's what I would recommend. Because
They
they
do.
need younger people in there,
They
because
do,
right now they're
absolutely.
not very young. They're
And
not very young
I also
people
just
there.
hope that you guys can do that job for me. That's a big
And
part,
that's
a big
fair.
part of it, right?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we all have to go out and make a living,
Yeah,
to pay
yeah.
the taxes,
Yeah,
to pay
yeah.
for everything that's going on here, and we don't all have what Alvina Slump has, which is the time to come to each meeting,
No, now let me
pick it
correct you
apart
there.
and
I
wait.
wish she would come to me.
Or if she did, I don't
doesn't.
know.
But
I don't know
I
much
just-
about her. I just see
But
how
I'm
many
not-
comments she
yeah.
makes. And
And I'm
She
going to
watches
just
it
use
on the
her
net.
as an example.
Yeah, on the net.
It is very, very few people that come
Sparsely
here.
in here.
Because from your living room, yes, you can watch, but you can't
It's not the
engage.
same.
And I don't believe
No.
I have ever seen her here. But that's not just to isolate her, that's many people.
Mhm.
If they would come, and I will applaud those who consider being a candidate for council who do come.
There's
and
2 or
sit
3 of
in,
them, I think.
that they try to observe and learn from the observing, and also learn what the commitment is.
And the process. too.
Yeah, because it's changing from a 3-year commitment to
To
a
a 4.
4-year. And for me personally, I really had to stop and think, that's another
It's another
whole
4 years.
year.
It's a small lifetime.
It is, and you're absolutely right. You know, you are a young man with a business, with a family. How much time is it going to take from you to be a counselor?
A lot,
I have to tell you a lot.
a lot.
It does, and so that's why you often see senior people
Yeah.
who have the opportunity to give the time. And it's unfortunate because, like with Wes Hopkin, he was a very delightful addition in terms of his perspective. You know, educated, young, interested, and he added a lot to the chemistry of our function. But I think John's got a great idea. The advisory committees typically meet once a month. They sometimes are given a direction by council to investigate something. Other times something has come through the advisory committee. But it's a great tool.
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
Really good tool.
That's how I got started.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, for
me
2
too.
I have to
years.
go back to work myself, but I appreciate your
Yeah.
answering my questions,
Oh,
and
yes.
I truly do believe that you are both trying to make this town better. I just see that there are many outside things that are globally making huge impact on the local scene,
Yeah,
and they need
It's true.
much more investigation from us as locals to see what motives those are, because they're not always your well-being or mine, and it has a lot to do with taking from us and not giving.
That's a fair comment, and I think sometimes when we as a council say to staff, tell us what's happening in other municipalities, in other jurisdictions, and so they will come back and say, okay, in Kamloops this is what's happening, in Prince George this is what's happening. But I think where council always has to temper it, those communities aren't exactly
No.
like here.
No, and
And
this
so
place
we
is
have
already
to-
better than those places.
I believe so. I think you're right. And I mean, you know, do you take, for example, the number of festivals we support as a council in conjunction with other partnerships. John is a businessman, other businesses. There isn't another city in this province that does what we do. And that doesn't mean we should stop.
or gives out as many grants as we do.
Yeah,
That's the
well,
other important thing too.
we need to consider what's unique
Yeah.
about what we are, and
Yeah.
certainly the resources of a Prince George, of a Kamloops, of a
Yeah,
Victoria.
We don't
even,
have those.
they can give us information, and
Yeah.
we can take what we think is appropriate, we can reject what we don't like. But I think all of those things need to come into play with what you're saying. You choose to live here, therefore you want it to be the best
Mhm.
that it can be. So I really appreciate you coming forward, and I'm so sorry, Al, that I didn't recognize
That's
you.
okay. You changed my hair. Thanks for spending the time. I appreciate it.
Very well.
Can
Nice
you.
seeing you.
You too.
can you hang on a sec here and just hold this so I can ask a question?
Yep.
It's already recording, so just wait. Okay, so just in order to answer the question that he had in regarding the smart meters, the difference between the smart meter and the AMR meter. First of all, smart is patent, so an AMR meter cannot use the name smart, but they're both wireless devices, and the difference between the two is they both send out signals, but only one can receive. So that this way, if the stove wanted to communicate with the fridge, they can communicate through the electric meter to the stove. They can actually send signals through, but with an AMR, it can't. They can't send, but it sends out the information. So that's the difference. But they're all emitting it out. That's what was talked about at the public forum, and that's why we had the opt-out program. Sadly, though, I have to say I've had a number of people contact me because they call in regards to the opt-out program, and then they're told that we do not have smart meters, but they are wireless meters, so they're not being told quite the truth. They're given the impression that there's no harm from these AMR meters, which is incorrect. But I'm just in regards to that, as a follow-up here. I happen to know a gentleman that has these measuring devices, and I'm going to put together a video and measure different spots around Penticton.
Yes.
And I would actually like to invite council, because I think this should, I love and truly respect the way both of you have just answered this man's questions, and you're just as concerned, because you live here too.
That's right. That's
You know,
right.
and
I
so-
choose to live here.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you were a councillor or a mayor here and you lived in Vancouver, then we'd have problems. But I think you want what's best for the health, the safety, the economics of Penticton. But would you guys welcome to measure this, especially with the Shaw, like Al just pointed out here? Maybe you guys can get all the facts, you know, and so we see a lot of illnesses here in Penticton. I mean, never before when I was young did we need curbs for sidewalks. Now,
The left down.
yeah, you know, I mean, so we got to start looking at health and safety as one of our issues here.
Yes.
But would you
Well,
guys?
it's a social issue, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, would you guys be open to?
I'd be more than willing to hear any information that will come forward. I mean, it's always better to be informed than uninformed,
Yeah.
you know, so now, does that mean that we'll be able to do something about it? That's the question.
Yeah.
And it's
That
premature.
a whole
Yeah.
city
Well,
council
and that's
together
understandable.
has to answer it, so, but I'm always willing to get more information.
Well, just to
coming in.
congratulations there,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of people tried with their cities to do what I worked out with you guys and have the public forum, and the city of Penticton was the only one.
Yeah, we
And they
did.
actually adopted the opt-out program across Canada, so.
Well, you know,
I don't
we,
like the charging part.
despite what sometimes the perception is, we do try to be approachable,
Yep.
and to make opportunities for the citizens to have discussion with us. As John says, sometimes when all is said and done, we don't necessarily agree, but we try to be respectful, you know, and
Yeah.
appreciate that you do have an opinion.
And sometimes you don't like the answer yourself.
Yeah, that's
It's true,
Very
sometimes I
important there
don't.
because of the corporation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because,
for
well,
sure.
because of the governance.
Yes.
Like, you don't, as an individual in a municipal council, have freedom to do whatever you want. There is an overarching governance.
You know, when I first got elected, I thought, holy cow, this is it. I'll get on my white stallion with my shiny armor and I'll have my javelin there, and I'm gonna save the world. Well, it just doesn't work that way. You know, very, very big disappointment. After my third session on city council, holy cow. I'm talking about third meeting. I said,
Really?
man, there's nothing I can do here.
In some cases.
Yeah,
In other
there's
cases, we
nothing-
can do a lot.
Yeah,
but
the
it
first
just-
3 meetings, everything that came up, I couldn't change anybody's mind. We couldn't because of the provincial statutes. We couldn't do anything. And I said, holy cow, then why are we being elected? You know, we can't.
Showpieces.
we
Sometimes
can't
your
do
hands are
anything.
tied.
Yeah, we can't do anything.
But that's where UBCM comes into play, where all the municipalities are there. The premier of the day. Yeah, the premier of the day. I was going to say prime minister. The premier of the day and the ministers in that cabinet come to that forum, and we lobby. Like, we're going to see this September 7 or 8 different ministers, and it is our opportunity to lobby for some of the change that you're speaking to. Because that's where they are. So that's the forum. That's where you get it started. And if you can get support from your other colleagues throughout the province, then sometimes it can be moved forward. Sometimes the government is inflexible.
Yeah. And we put through a lot of resolutions
Yes, we do.
to UBCM
Yes.
from all over the province.
Yes.
Every municipality puts in a bunch of resolutions,
How we think
and they
it can
get
be
voted
better.
on. And they get voted on during the convention, and if they get voted and they pass, then they automatically go to the government to see whether they'll put them into play or not, and maybe change the laws or bring some more
At least
laws in place.
at least adjust them
Yeah,
sometimes.
you know, so,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
because-
that's one
So
good thing
it's a
about it.
forum for possibly changing provincial statute, is
Yeah,
what you're saying?
improving,
Exactly.
improving, or
Yeah.
sometimes their statute is outdated.
Yeah, and it
Or
has to be
sometimes
changed.
it's so new, they haven't got any governance.
Yeah, exactly.
My
Well,
hand
just-
might fall off, you've got a better train.
I'm sorry, I don't mean
Okay,
to
just
cut
one
you
last,
short.
okay,
I have to
okay,
go to
if I
work.
could just get one last question in here. Because of these elections coming up, and at the last elections, I asked this question because of the compromising. I mean, the biggest elections, and you would think the most scrutinized elections is in the United States and for presidency, and the electronic voting machines. Now, I had asked for a manual vote count last time, and it's not personal to anybody, but just to keep our elections honest here, because the dial voting machines have proven to be able to be
Well, they're still
compromised.
machines, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So my proposal, because is how can we arrange to have a manual vote count And this way we can compare the two, so that this way we don't have these problems anymore. Like, because, I mean, I talked to Elections BC, which is where Karen told me to go to.
Yes.
And what he told me was they never told the city to put them in, and Elections BC doesn't even use them. So if Elections BC doesn't trust them, why does the Corporation of Penticton trust them? So how would one go about doing this?
I don't know, but that's a good question, and I will present that question and see if we can get you an answer.
Is that a resolution that we have to go through, or
I'm not
bylaw?
sure. We'll have to ask.
I don't know either.
Yeah, but that's a fair question,
Yeah.
so
So-
we'll endeavor to get an answer.
So, well, can I get a 5-minute delegation to present in regards to
Council
what?
is open to
Yeah.
delegations.
Yep.
There's always a time restraint you can appreciate.
Yep.
But again, you go through the corporate officer.
Yeah.
If you would like to bring something forward, and she is obliged to bring everything forward to mayor and council as the agenda is established. But that's the route you go, is through the corporate officer. But John, I can certainly make council
Sure.
aware of the
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
It's a fair question. I just don't know the answer.
Okay, all right, so, yeah, okay, so I'll start with her, but technically, it has, can somebody say no? That's my question here.
Again, I don't know the answer to that,
Yeah.
but we will find the answer. Absolutely.
Because, I mean, I've requested two
You know, it'd
5-minute
have to be a
delegations and
majority
they've
vote,
happened.
you know,
Yeah,
a
we
majority vote.
couldn't have
Yeah.
one
No,
or the
no,
other,
no.
but to say, could we have, the one as a comparison to the other? That's a very interesting question.
Hmm.
And it's true, it's only a machine, and so there can be flaws. Even in the
We see it all
manual
the time.
counting, there could be errors made, so.
I think it would be great, actually, to have two systems in place, and if we get a base of volunteers, and I'm sure there would be, to have them actually take the count and be able to do both. I
Well,
mean,
again, there's a process in
Yeah.
that. You have to have people that are given
Scrutineers, and a whole bunch of
Scrutineers.
stuff.
fair bit of trust
Yeah, a lot.
and obligation, but we'll carry the question forward,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Judy. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks a lot,
Thank you,
fellas.
John.
Judy, that was nice.
I'm sorry
It's
to
the
make
third one I've attended, and it's